Hi, I'm Mrs. Urban, and I am a school counselor at Sawnee Elementary, and I am excited to read to you today The Kvetch That Stole Hanukkah. The Kvetch Who Stole Hanukkah. So before I read the story, I wanted to do a little bit of explaining so you could appreciate how funny this story is. The story does incorporate some Yiddish vocabulary in it, and Yiddish is actually a Jewish slang that has been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so I wanted to explain what the word kvetch means, because that's our star of our story. Kvetch is somebody who complains a lot, and he lives, and you're going to see when I read the story, in the village of Oyville. Oy is short for oy vey, and oy vey is kind of a phrase that we use to say, oh dear, or woe is me. For example, let's say that you were cooking something and you dropped it on the floor. You would say, oy vey. And there is some other words that you have heard that are in our language today that derive from Yiddish. So geld is money. Latke, which we'll learn in the story, that's a potato pancake. But there's also words that you might have heard. If somebody has to schlep something, usually means to drag or pull. But you could say if you had to go from store to store to run errands, you could say you were schlepping today. Nosh is if you have a little nosh or a little snack. Schmooze is when you might say, oh, we were schmoozing. It just means we're making small talk. And oh my goodness, I was a klutz. Klutz means clumsy. And so some of those words you may have heard before, and that actually comes from Yiddish. So before we begin the story, I want to make sure that you understand some of the Hanukkah vocabulary. The first thing I want you to understand or want you to know is the menorah, also right here. The menorah is the candle holder that's lit during all 8 nights of Hanukkah. The second thing is a game that we play, and it is called dreidel, and it is a spinning top with 4 sides, and each side has Hebrew letters. So let's see, this is Nun. This is Gimel, this is Hay, and this is Shin. And when we play the game, those letters signify different things. The geld is the money that we play with Hanukkah. Those are the gold coins that we play with. And we also love to eat latkes on Hanukkah, and those are basically potato pancakes, which sound like a pancake, but they're really not. It's kind of like a flattened hash brown, and it's usually served with applesauce or sour cream, and it is so yummy. The Kvetch Who Stole Hanukkah by Bill Berlin and Susan Isikoff Berlin, illustrated by Peter J. Welling. The Kvetch Who Stole Hanukkah. In the town of Oyville, in a land far away, the children prepared for each holiday. They read about Passover and the Red Sea parting. They learned of Rosh Hashanah and the New Year starting. They pictured Judah Maccabee, his bravery and toil. They imagined the temple, its lights needing oil. When the menorah shone bright, its message was clear. A great miracle happened here. Not everyone in Oyville saw things this way. There was one person who always said nay. It was the Kvetch who lived high on the hill, with his grumpy face and his voice high and shrill. What is a Kvetch? You may want to know. What makes him so gloomy? What makes him say no? A Kvetch is a person who likes to complain. When others see sun, Kvetch will see rain. Now, there are times when we all feel quite blue. We can all be kvetchy, That is surely true. But to a Kvetch, the world never seems bright. To a Kvetch, most things are never quite right. It's not like the Kvetch had to be that way, but no one had taught him how to let his heart play. There was some kind of sadness that made him not right, that made him see dark when others saw light. So every year on Hanukkah's first day, the people of Oiville would hear the Kvetch say, "The latkes smell bad, and the dreidels make me dizzy, and to hear children laugh puts me in a tizzy." Every year it was the same old refrain. These Hanukkah songs, they give me a pain. Hanukkah shmanukkah, it's all about gifts, shouted the Kvetch, and he sounded quite miffed. But most of all made him take flight was the glow that came from the Hanukkah lights. When the candles burned down, they gave off an aura that made the Kvetch hate every menorah. His hate seemed to grow with every passing year, till the thought of the lights filled him with fear. He would dream of menorahs with their candles so bright, and awaken in terror, dripping in fright. I must gain control. I must find a way to stop dreidels from spinning and children at play. There will be no latkes, no more will they fry, no Hanukkah gelt, no new toys to try. So the Kvetch thought, and then thought some more, sweating and pacing across his bare floor, until finally a smile crept over his face. "I've got it," he cried, and he ran out of that place. In the darkness of night, when Oiville was still, the Kvetch made his way down the long winding hill. If you looked really closely, you could see the Kvetch creeping, but most houses were dark, most people were sleeping. He sneaked into Oiville on Hanukkah's first night, helped through the dark by the menorah's bright light. "Ah," said the Kvetch, "it's time for my scheme. No more menorahs, not another bad dream." No lights and no dreidels, no latkes this year. No toys, no presents. His joy was so clear. He snuffed out the candles and turned off the lights and carried menorahs through the dark winter night. When the next day dawned all over town, the children of Oiville cast their heads down. Their menorahs were gone. The lights were all out, and no one knew what this was about. Then they all heard it, a most wretched noise, the triumphant sound of the Kvetch's loud voice. "Lights out!" he yelled with a jubilant jeer. "There will be no Hanukkah in Oiville this year." He took the menorahs to the top of the hill. He set them down with unusual skill. And as he turned to see the new day, he saw 3 children a few feet away. "Mr. Kvetch," the children said, "you've got it all wrong. The Hanukkah spirit is joyous and strong. The Maccabees taught us to strive to be free, to treasure true justice and charity. The lights and the gifts show our dedication to the strength and the faith of our ancient nation. It's a lesson for all that when life seems dim, there's reason for hope. You shouldn't give in. The Kvetch stepped back and looked off into space. A lonely tear rolled down his sad face. But, he said as he trembled and shook, the lights were so bright, I've been too scared to look. Perhaps you're afraid to see things so bright, for fear that you'll lose them as day becomes night. Maybe you would rather see things as bleak, because somewhere inside you feel frightened and weak. The children stepped forward and took his cold hand, and the Kvetch felt his heart and his spirit expand. And when he looked all over town, a smile filled his face instead of a frown. Then the people of Oiville looked up to that hill, and they took in a scene that made their hearts thrill. The menorahs shone bright as the snow. All the candles were burning, all the lights were aglow. The Kvetch, too, was beaming. His face was so bright as the children helped him return all the lights. And the people of Oiville gave out a great cheer. Another great miracle has happened here. The end. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Wishing you all love and light.